Before we get started on the Splatoon 2 review, I just want to preface by giving my personal stance on the game. So I was a huge fan of Splatoon 1. I loved it so much. It was my personal game of the year when it came out. But I couldn't actually play it as much because when it came out my internet was pretty poor and it was hard to get connected properly, but I still loved the game regardless. So when they announced Splatoon 2 at the Nintendo Switch press event, I was pretty excited for the game, although at first I thought it was just a deluxe edition of Splatoon 1. It turned out to be a whole new sequel, and leading up to the game I was still excited but couldn't see what made it a proper sequel and why it was worthy of the number next to its name. So keep that in mind as you watch this review, but let's get started.
Are you a squid? Or are you a kid? That is the question. Well, actually in Splatoon 2 you're both. The game starts off with a short customised character screen and a tutorial teaching you the basics of the game. It immediately shows us the main thing that sets the game apart from pretty much anything else available, and that's the movement in the game. On land, you move slowly, but shoot a little bit of ink on the floor and you can swim through it at what feels like 4 or 5 times regular walking speed. Swimming through the ink also allows you to travel vertically on walls, making the game feel like a mix of a shooter and a platformer. It's this unique method of movement that is core to what makes the Splatoon series so enjoyable. Although each of the modes require different styles of play, this core mechanic remains the same. And it's why it's so integral to the game that it feels good to do. And it does. The tutorial also teaches you the controls, which are pretty much a standard shooter affair. However, Splatoon 2 is different in that you can use a combination of the right analog stick and motion controls in order to perform quicker, more fluid and more delicate aiming. It should be noted that these can be turned off in the options menu, which I imagine many people will do. However, adjusting to the motion controls in the first Splatoon made it difficult for me to go back, and I can only play my best in Splatoon 2 if I keep them turned on. While they felt intuitive with the large Wii U gamepad, there is an adjustment period when using the Joy-Cons or Pro Controller with Splatoon 2. Although once this adjustment period is over, I can safely say that playing Splatoon 2 with a Switch Pro Controller feels incredible. The digital and clicky nature of the Pro Controller's shoulder buttons also work wonders in Splatoon 2. As soon as your brain decides to shoot, your fingers will be ready to do it in a matter of milliseconds. One question I had about the motion controls is how well they would work when playing the Switch in handheld mode, as you're moving the screen around as well. I can personally say that I didn't have any problems. I suppose it's because the camera and your retina are moving around in tandem with your hand, making it all feel quite natural. Although if you're having problems with the motion controls, you can adjust the sensitivity separately for both handheld mode and for the controller mode, or as aforementioned, turn them off entirely. Inkopolis Square is very similar to Inkopolis Plaza from the first game, complete with eccentric user-submitted artwork which is hard to tire from. Every time you enter the game you're greeted to Off the Hook with Pearl and Marina, showing which game types and maps are available. Although the same lines of dialogue are constantly repeated, Pearl and Marina's banter can be pretty funny. But I'm definitely #Team Marina for life. Inkopolis Square has a few extra attractions that the first game was lacking, but we'll get to it in time. The first place you'll likely spend most of your time in Splatoon 2 is the lobby, as the multiplayer is very clearly the main selling point in Splatoon 2, being front and centre in the plaza. There's player, ranked and league modes. Each mode features a map rotation in which every couple of hours the 2 maps for that mode are switched out, and the game type will change. When starting the game, player matches will be the only one available to you, which only features the basic Turf War game type. Turf War is the easiest game type to understand, in which you just have to be the team who covers the majority of the map in your colour ink. While being simple, it allows you to learn the ins and outs of the game and try different weapon sets, sub-weapons and the like. Although most of the specifics of different weapons are explained, situational usefulness and advanced tactics are learned through trying it out yourself. This isn't just the case for weapons, but also your other Squid Kid abilities. The game allows you to be creative by taking up sniper position or hiding and popping out with a melee weapon. Being timed, Turf War gives you ample opportunity for experimenting without being a detriment to your team, as anything you do will contribute to ink coverage. Also, the way Turf War is scored, it is absolutely possible to come back from a grueling defeat. Unfortunately though, if you have even one AFKer on your team, you're at a massive disadvantage, and I haven't won a single game when there's an AFKer. Once you reach level 10, Ranked mode is unlocked. Rank features more advanced game types with objectives, similar to King the Hill or Capture the Flag, with their own unique Splatoon gimmicks. I find the Ranked mode game types to be a lot more fun than Turf War. The problem is that it takes a little too long to unlock. Depending on skill, getting to level 10 can take anywhere from 8 to 15 hours to unlock. There are ways to level up quicker by unlocking tickets in single player, but some people might be buying this game for the multiplayer alone. I can understand why you're forced to play Turf War for so long, so you can find what weapon sets you prefer, but I'm worried that a lot of people won't unlock ranked mode, which is my favourite part of the whole game. A change that I greatly appreciate is the system used to determine how you rank up or down. In Splatoon, winning or losing games will determine if your points went up or down. As matchmaking places you with random people, this could lead to repeated losses due to being unfortunately paired with bad players and losing ranks in quick succession. In Splatoon 2, a loss won't have any immediate repercussions, but will slowly chip away at a glass meter. If this meter breaks, you will drop a rank. The system has just the right amount of leniency, alleviating the frustration of reaching the top ranks. While the conditions for unlocking ranked mode are a bit too steep, the conditions for league mode are even worse. Not only must you reach level 10 and earn a rank of B in at least one ranked game time, but you must also have a friend or 3 who have done the same. For this reason, I wasn't able to get any first-hand experience with the mode, and I'm unfortunately going to have to refrain from commenting on it in this review. On top of all these modes, Nintendo occasionally hosts an event known as Splatfest. In a Splatfest, you side with a specific team, for example Team Mayo and Team Ketchup, and fight for your team to be crowned the winner. Added to this, the entire vibe of Inkopolis changes, and you can fight on an exclusive map. It's a really cool experience that brings the whole community together. But the Splatfest also brings this strange new scoring system known as Power, which I don't fully understand. In fact, there are weird numbers and meters in a few different places in Splatoon 2 that aren't explained or intuitive. If a lot of the above sounded familiar to you, then you've probably played the first Splatoon on Wii U. And there's no two ways around it, Splatoon 2 definitely has a same old feel. There are a few changes, such as some single player mechanics being added into multiplayer maps, but besides this and a few additional maps and weapons, Splatoon 2's multiplayer is almost identical to Splatoon. The new weapons are great though. The Splat Jewelies, which allow you to dodge roll, are my new favourite weapon, although I found that different weapons work better for different multiplayer modes. For example, I use the Splat Jewelies for Turf War and the Tensitech Splatter Shot for any ranked mode. I implore you to test out different weapons with different modes and see which works best. And they're still releasing new weapons as well as new maps for free. The Splatoon games employ a drip feed system with new content, allowing the game to stay fresh for years after the game comes out. Something that Splatoon 2 has dropped from the first Splatoon is the little mini games that you can play during queues, most definitely due to the lack of a second screen. On the plus side, in my experience, queues seem to last an incredibly short time in Splatoon 2, which is always a massive positive for a multiplayer focused game. Gear works the same way it did in the first game. Level up your gear to unlock random passive abilities. However, you can visit Krusty Sean for items that can help when aiming for a specific power up. It's also commendable how many unique looking pieces of gear there are. It's only different hats, shirts and shoes, but each piece has its own style that looks good and fits the game world. The biggest new addition to Splatoon 2 is the introduction of a brand new cardboard type mode known as Salmon Run. I'll just start off by saying how stupid it is that the availability of this mode is on a timer. That's right, there are some times of the day when you can play Salmon Run and times when you can't, which is absurd considering it's a co-op mode that you'd have to reserve time to play with your friends anyway. With that out of the way, Salmon Run is a sort of mix of single player and multiplayer. You fight AI controlled enemies like single player, but have to be aware of your teammates, planning when to come to their aid and reviving them if things get a bit too hairy. There are a lot of cool enemy designs, all exclusive to this mode, including a lot of bosses, each with their own unique weak points and strategies. Like with the competitive modes, maps are on a rotation, but unlike competitive, so are weapons. Your team is given 4 weapons at a time, which are then randomly assigned to each player. If you're not adept to the weapons in competitive, don't worry, as weapons tend to be easier to get comfortable with in PvE mode. While it's a fun mode, when you play with strangers, a match of Salmon Run only lasts for 3 rounds, which seems just a little too short. I feel like something like 5 rounds would have been perfect. Overall, Salmon Run is a fun detour if you're getting bored of competitive game times, or waiting for the maps to rotate. I imagine it would be a great mode to play 4-player locally. Like the first game, single player mixes up the regular gameplay in that it is more of a platformer with shooting elements. There isn't much story, but what is there is pretty charming. It has quite a bit more personality than the first game, pulling straight from the lore more explicitly rather than just hiding it behind collectibles, although it does do that as well. While the game looks great across the board, the best visuals appear in the single player. As you progress further through, the levels gain more colour and the increasing grandiose level design is a real treat for the eyes. The exact same sentiment can be echoed in regards to the hub world. Speaking of which, the hub world is also more intricate than the first game in terms of size and amount of puzzles. Likewise, the individual levels are bigger and better. It doesn't merely borrow elements from the first game, but introduces new, cooler mechanics like grind rails and grappling lures that are hugely enjoyable to play around with. And unlike the original, this time you are able to switch between a whole host of weapons, so you won't have to be forced to use the splatter shot too much if you're not a big fan of it. Most levels will force you to use a specific weapon for the first time round, but this gives you a chance to get used to them if you decide to play the single player first. And if you suck with any particular weapon, it's not a great detriment, as the single player levels are slow paced enough that you'll likely be able to fumble your way through. And every single weapon is able to be upgraded, but if you want to max them all out, be in for the grind. Playing through the game once only really provides you with enough currency to upgrade a couple of weapons. If there's one thing that stood out in the first Splatoon, it was the cleverly designed and hilarious boss fights. That's no different in Splatoon 2. In fact, this time bosses are designed around the different weapons that it forces you to use, allowing for some unique boss fights. On the other hand, it's a shame they reused so many bosses from the first game. The reused bosses are new fights with new mechanics, but it would have been nice to have an entirely new cast. For how good single player is though, with a bare bones story, it still feels like a training mode, which was my problem with the first game. I don't know exactly what it is, but I want more from a Splatoon 2 single player. Maybe it's the fact that the single player segment feels separate from the rest of the game. There isn't any real sense of urgency when Inkopolis goes on as normal. Tying it in with more synergetic locations, cutscenes and characters that fit the rest of the game could make it a bit better. Don't get me wrong, what's there is great, but I'm still longing for more. In conclusion, Splatoon 2 is an insanely fun and unique multiplayer shooter with enough content to keep you on the hook. The single player mode is just an extra for those who want a little more meat to chew on. It is undoubtedly retreading some dangerously familiar territory. However, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Due to the lack of sales of the Wii U, the first Splatoon sales were stunted out of the gate. Splatoon 2 brings the series into more people's hands. The few additions that have been implemented, and the superior single player campaign makes it the definitive Splatoon experience, worthy of being a numbered sequel, and makes me glad it's not another Wii U to Switch port. This game gets the Jamiethepayne stamp of excellence. Thanks everyone for watching, and as always, have fun playing video games.